Hmm. Um,
Am I
I
reading too much
remember.
into this movie?
No, I don't think so. I remember. I think people have discussed it at length, and I remember long time on Beach Grit once. We got into like one of those sort of article write-offs that just
Mm,
come up about random topics, and one of them was about representation of surfing in Hollywood films. And his argument was that North Shore is the
yeah,
greatest ever representation of surfing in Hollywood films. Whereas for me, I was like, there's so many fucking inaccuracies in it.
yeah,
Like, where he would take off on a
right.
closeout right-hander, natural footed, and then pull out of a left-hand barrels, like goofy footed. And
Buttons,
then when
man,
he pulled
switch
off the wave,
stance.
he's riding a longboard. Like, just all of these sort of continuity errors. But in terms of sort of just encapsulating the surfing experience on the North Shore, I guess, sure, it does a really good job.
I
But
would argue Big Wednesday is
Big
one of
Wednesday
the
for sure,
best. You know,
100%. Yeah,
it
yeah,
it's like that is there's drama, there's serious, there's emotional, there's
yeah.
heartache. It's
There's
got
the culture
everything.
as well. Yeah.
John Milius, it was widely panned when it came out.
Mm,
They totally the surf media ripped into it super hard.
mm,
But and it's funny, like a lot of surf movies age. I feel like some Hollywood surf movies age better.
yeah,
Point Break kind of aged better, I think.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
100%.
I think, well, In God's Hands I
Mm.
don't think that could age well.
Yeah. It will almost in like that bizarre cult movie status. What was that one that came out that was so bad, and then James Franco recently made a movie about this movie. I can't
What?
remember it, so yeah,
I didn't
I'll
even
look
know
it up
that.
and get it to you. Yeah, but actually, my pick, I won't say it was the best representation, but
Yes.
it was actually one that I thought that did really well, all things considered, was Chasing Mavericks.
Yeah, I really
It's not
like
that
that
bad.
movie.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
I thoroughly enjoyed that as a Hollywood
Yeah,
representation. I thought the acting was fine. I thought, yeah, there's some corny parts,
yeah,
but that's you know what? That's like fucking surfers. Though we are corny, and if you were
yeah,
to look
yeah,
outside in, you'd be like, my wife says it all the time. Like, oh my god, you guys are so cheesy.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
a non-surfer would look at that as corny too. So
yeah, yeah.
phenomenal. There's another one. What am I? Tim Winton's movie,
Breathe,
Breathe.
breathe. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
holy shit! That
yeah.
captured so much of the essence until it got to the point where he's ending up having to choke and have sex with his friend's wife.
Classic surfers
Classic.
predicament. we've
Typical.
all, we've all been there.
Nat Young. No,
Yeah,
that's why you
but
didn't
yeah.
call
I
him the
mean,
animal for nothing.
Tim Winton's a really funny one to think about for an Australian surfer
He's
specifically.
very
So
sensitive.
yeah, I don't know if you know his backstory though. So he's obviously like he's a very successful, probably one of Australia's most successful writers, at least
Mm.
in contemporary times. But he actually started off with a series of popular children's books.
Really?
So he had this character called Lockie Leonard, um, and they're all of his books, like the canon, the Winton canon, they're all based in the same area, even really in the same town.
Really?
And this was just a children's version of it. So it was the young kid that he was a hot young surfer that grew up around Perth, but then had moved down to like the southwest
Yeah.
because his dad was a cop. So this is like these themes run through all of his books, but it was like a teenager's book, and we used to read them all in primary school. So most school students have read at least one of the Lockie Leonard books, and it was about a young surfer getting his first girlfriend and proving his chops in the big surf down south and getting into the local crew and all this sort of stuff. But even back then, like you look at it now, and the way that he wrote about surfing in those books was really a really good representation as well.
Spot on.
Yeah, because he's a surfer. I mean, his writing. I'm not a fan. Certainly, I can read it and it's good, but he's not like one of my favorite writers. But in terms of the representation of surfing culture, he's done an extremely good job. Anyway, how did we get here?
Yeah. Well, we started talking about Hollywood surf films, which I
That's
think
right.
is
Yeah.
an apt conversation in some ways.
Mm.
There's, and then you get like the cheesy stuff. There's like some weird 80s stuff too, like Under the Boardwalk with Brian Austin Green and Nathan Fletcher is surfing in it.
Yeah. Right.
and he goes by the name Mongo Peterson or something like that. And it's, and it's like a coming of age story again. Like it's funny. I don't know, like surfing follows like a lot of the coming of age. I would love to see something like surfing getting older, more like a Hollywood movie of those things a little bit more from an older perspective. Now that we're older.
One more before we leave this topic. Have you seen Puberty Blues?
I haven't seen it, but I know of it. I know the lore. I know that that it's, Kidman has schooled me a bit on it, and I've seen clips, but I haven't been able to find the full feature length.
Yeah, it's you could probably maybe find it on YouTube nowadays, I think. I'll have a look for it and see. But yeah, it again, in terms of capturing early 80s masculine surf culture, there's nothing holds a candle to it. It's pretty intense. Like, it's got some pretty full-on stuff on it, but also like looking at the different gender roles in surfing at that time, and how girls sort of found their way into the subculture and how they were treated by guys. And yeah, it was pretty heady stuff. And again, it was something that I think a lot of us were shown at high school, because it was a really good sort of microcosm of Australian culture, not even just surf culture. So yeah, it's got some fucking classic lines in it too that still get rolled out to this day.
I have like the Waves issue when Kidman was editor, and they took like clips and in it, and they talk all about Puberty Blues, and they have like little quotes from it and pictures, and I'm like, what is this Puberty Blues? I'm like 14, like, what is this? Trying to figure it out, and didn't have the internet really to look it up. And
I think this might be incorrect, but I think the girl, she was a girl, like she would have been 15 or 16, that wrote it, then also starred in, so she wrote the book, and then I think starred in the movie as well too.
Shit.
Yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, so funny to talk about all this, because I've just had surf movies on my mind a lot lately. So obviously there was Inherent Bummer. Is it surf film or surf movie?
It's probably a movie.
I think it's surf movie.
Yeah.
It's more of a movie than a film.
Yeah.
So you had that come out, and then also Pentecostal.
Oh, gosh.
Which I've been scratching my head trying to think of, let's call it mainstream, corporate sponsored surf movie that's come out.
I haven't seen the for Atoll, the Billabong one that just came out with Griffin Colapinto, Seth Moniz, and he's the next great white hope from Australia, Ethan Ewing.
Oh, that one where they're at P-Parks.
Yeah.
Is that a full length though? I thought it was just
20 minutes. 20 minutes counts as full length these days.
Nowadays, yeah. Well, funny, even Pentecostal is like 35.
Yeah.
Which back in the day, if you were spending $30, $40 on a VHS, you'd be pretty cut. If it was only
I was used to about 35 to 45 was like your standard. Couple hour and a half ones that have intermissions in them for a reason. Older ones.
Yeah, lots of filler clips. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but yeah, let's get into those actually, because let's first actually talk Pentecostal, because it came out first, and holy fucking shitballs, that is this decade's modern collective. That is, I think, the greatest progressive surf film that's come out in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Do you know, I disagree a little bit. I think Modern Collective showed surfing, I think, at a level that nobody had seen before in terms of aerial surfing. And I think it's sort of, in terms of the effect that it had on performance surfing, probably greater than what Pentecostal is. There is, don't get me wrong, some of the stuff in Pentecostal is
different
incredible.
Time period too.
But I think in terms of a better film, it's like the way it's put together is just incredible. And it is like the surfing, I prefer to watch than, looking back on Modern Collective now. Some of the performances from Wade Goodall and Harry Bryant and Dane to a lesser extent, but still, incredible surfing.
Dane to the lesser extent?
Yeah, he took a back seat, I think, in that.
I mean, Wade was bright, the shining star. Like he overshadowed everyone. You know, everyone surfed well, but Wade was just, I mean, it's his film, but holy fuck, just stylish, powerful, and raw. And here's the difference between Felipe and Wade, right? Like, because both I think are equally as good, in my opinion. Wade's got power, and there's style and finesse, and there's a rawness. Like there's a go for it abandonment. That Wade throws caution to wind, where you feel like Felipe or Gabriel, there's a little bit more calculation, and there's less raw abandon. It's just more technical, and which is amazing in its own right. Then I say that because those guys hardly get featured in movies like that, and so you don't see the two compared. They were an Inherent Bummer, which was awesome, but we'll get into it. But you rarely see those guys in a movie with Dane Reynolds or Wade. So I feel like I have to mention it, though, because they're like the gold standard right now.
Yeah, you're completely right. And I think sometimes, you know, looking at Felipe, for instance, you can watch him surf a wave so perfectly, so textbook, with not a droplet of water out of place, that it's almost like, well, what did you do on that wave though? Like, where's your style? Whereas when, like you said, with somebody like Wade, it's a lot rawer, and you can really see that that's his personality coming through, which is what's such a cool thing. But yeah, look, in terms of, like I said, the surfing performance, don't get me wrong, is incredible. But my favorite thing about Pentecostal was the way it was directed by Wade and Shane Fletcher. The soundtrack was fucking so epic.
I was shazamming like all the way through it.
Yeah, well, it's really cool. So Wade did an interview on Beach Grip last week
recently.
Talking about some of the influences behind the movie in terms of what films had influenced the direction there, and it was something that I picked up on too, like the way that I think the color palette and even the music that they used just evoked the sort of raw power of the Australian desert and the Southern Indian Ocean so well. And I think turns out it was a deliberate choice, and some of the movies that they referenced were movies that have done that really well. So like proper, you know, big production, not Hollywood, but, you know, big Australian films.
There's that, but there's also like, there's a certain aesthetic that Wade has that I see in patterns in Australian surfing. Like, I would say like Wade is on the tree limb of like a Matt Branson. There's this like kind of, I don't want to say hardcore metal vibe to it, I guess. I don't know what to call it, you know.
Mad Max.
You know, Hessian, he was like called for a while. Like it was like that kind of raw. I don't want to call it punk because it's not punk. It's metal almost in a sense. And there's like this interesting lineage in Australian surfing, particularly, where it's like you see it, and I don't know. To me, like I'm like, oh yeah, I can see where this tree or this vein came from.
Yeah, it's if you can't rock and roll, don't fucking come.
That's exactly.
Yeah. And you know, Mikey Wright as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like it was like I said, I did a review for Beach Grip for Pentecostal, and I said the greatest compliment I could give it is that I've already watched it twice. Which is funny because you think about that compared to our old favorites, which, you know, you've watched
over and over.
Yeah, hundreds of times. So nowadays, like, to watch a movie twice is the biggest compliment you can give it.
It is, because there's so much out there now that you feel like there's disposability to the movies now, unfortunately, unless there's like a story to it. Whereas, and maybe there'll be one or two, like Snap 3, which came out like last year, and he's got something really good going where it's you know, it's got throwback from like the 90s type of surf film, I would say, and that's kind of nice and refreshing. And I think our next movie, Inherent Bummer, it follows in that kind of tradition. It's got I was trying to think about the influences of that movie, but I want to hear your initial impressions of that one. Wait. Before we move on, Pentecostal, out of 1 to 5 feet, Hawaiian, what would you give it? Pentecostal?
What, 5 feet being
the top?
top? Yeah.
Yeah.